Welcome to the 10th season of What's Eating Harlem. I'm your host, Tabitha C. Williams. Our show pays homage to the trailblazers of yesterday. We recognize the entrepreneurs who continue to be a mainstay in our community and introduce you to dreamers who are waiting to make their mark in Harlem. There's so much to see. Let's get started. 10 years ago, Chef Cisse joined us when he opened one of his first restaurants. Now, we're back with him to explore his latest and perhaps greatest culinary creation. Plus, the Renaissance to Renaissance series takes us back to one of Harlem's oldest and most treasured institutions, St. James Presbyterian Church.
Presbyterian Church, they were a white congregation. They built this incredible edifice, and then they realized that the community was changing.
And they were coming.
And so they looked to sell. And they sold it to St. James in 1927, and they built another church at 155th Street, which is another huge edifice, and left there, consequently, as well, because of the same migration of people of color.
All of that and more.
This program was made possible by the Harlem Community Development Corporation and by the West Harlem Development Corporation. Solutions through collaboration. Also by the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce.
Harlem's nightlife and restaurant scene booming, a wide array of culinary delights has emerged. Soul food, Mexican, Italian, barbecue, African bistro, and burgers. But something was missing, a true steakhouse. Until now. PB Brasserie Steakhouse has arrived, making its mark on Harlem's iconic 125th Street. Offering a contemporary twist on fine dining, PB Brasserie is the brainchild of the talented Chef Cisse El Hadji. Born in Senegal, Chef Cisse came to the United States at just 17 years old, diving headfirst into the restaurant world. It was there that he discovered his passion for creating unforgettable culinary experiences. Under the mentorship of master chefs like Jean-Georges Van Richten and Daniel Boulud, Chef Cisse honed his craft. Later, he co-founded several beloved Harlem staples, including Ponte Bistro, Renaissance, and the Harlem Cafe. We sat down with Chef Cisse to talk about PB Brasserie, his inspiration, and his journey from Senegal to Harlem. Chef Cisse, you are no stranger to What's Eating Harlem, so let me be the first person to say welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me back.
And it's a pleasure because you are making your mark all over Harlem, whether we're talking about Ponte Bistro or Renaissance or even Harlem Cafe, and now your latest venture, which is PB Brasserie Steakhouse. How do you do it all?
I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of work, and the problem is I love Harlem so much, and I always wanted to bring my talent to Harlem. So from bistro to brasserie to cafe, and now steakhouse.
And what do you love most about Harlem?
I moved to Harlem in 1995, and Harlem is home for me. I love the culture, I love the food, I love the people, and Harlem welcomed me like, I'm a part of the family.
Well, that's true. So let's take it back, because Ponte Bistro, like What's Eating Harlem, is in its 10th year. which is no small feat for any restaurant, especially, for an entrepreneur and chef. So what do you think is the secret main ingredient that keeps everything going?
I mean, I said it's consistency, good food, good service, and be community oriented. People love Ponte because it's their place, their own Ponte.
And now, this is your fourth venture in Harlem.
That's right.
What makes you want to just keep expanding?
Want to create jobs, find jobs, hire more people we can, help them grow. Because if you see my staff, especially the management now, some of them was the waiters, bartenders, and now they're running the place.
So they have promotion and elevation.
Absolutely.
And what makes you just want to keep giving back?
That's where I started. They give me what I know today. Somebody trained me well, teach me how to run a restaurant, and I have to give that back to my community.
And now with PB Brasserie Steakhouse. Why is steakhouse?
All right. All my restaurant is different, and I said, what's the community need? When we opened Harlem Cafe 2 years ago, I was looking for breakfast place, and we don't have it around Harlem. And I said, you know what? I gotta do something about that. That's why we opened Harlem Cafe. And for a while now, I don't have a good steak. I love steak. I'm a steak guy. Anytime I need a good steak, I have to go all the way to downtown.
From the perfectly seasoned 16-ounce ribeye steaks to the tender, juicy seared lamb chops and the Senegalese-style mussels, Chef Cisse is redefining what it means to dine in Harlem. Every dish is a masterpiece.
That's why we have opened PB Brasserie, because we have dry aged steaks for 41 days. Some great top filet mignon in the house, the lamb chop. So people come for that.
The marbling, all the good stuff.
All the good stuff in this thing.
Okay, so you decided to have the steakhouse here, and what are the signature dishes that you serve that really set PB Brasserie Steakhouse a cut above everyone else?
It's different. PB Brasserie is different because we bring our signature more Africana, which people love. And in the beginning, we don't have it on the menu, but people say we gotta have that, so we bring that back to the menu. So more Africana. We have my favorite dish, the two dishes, the salmon béarnaise, the Chilean sea bass. That's beside the steaks, and they're all doing amazing on the menu. People love it.
So there's something for everyone. Let's say that someone's not the biggest carnivore and
we don't want to eat meat. We have something else. Even for the vegetarian, we have the vegetarian pasta people love.
Is the pasta made in-house?
That's right. Homemade fettuccine.
Oh, that all sounds delicious. And I'd be remiss to mention that you have an extensive wine selection behind me.
I mean, we hired the top sommelier in New York City to help us build this wine to go very well with our food, because the meat is so rich, so you gotta get some good Bordeaux, some good Pinot Noir, and with my menu and the wine works very well today.
Nestled between the legendary Apollo Theater and the brand new National Black Theater, PB Brasserie has quickly become a favorite destination. Its elegant interior design and sophisticated atmosphere set a new standard for dining in Harlem. And just being in this place, it has such a beautiful aesthetic. It feels like home. It feels refreshing. What was the concept behind the wood, the colors, the live plants that you have here?
I mean, my team and I, we worked very hard to get this together because we wanted to have something like when you walk in, you don't feel like you're in Harlem. That was the dream. So we did. All of us did a nice work to come together with the color, choosing the plant, choosing the chair, the table, to get this going, because we wanted to something like you cannot find in Harlem. So this place, that's the only place like this in Harlem.
What can we anticipate seeing, smelling, and tasting today?
We will do the lamb chop, was very popular. We do the sea bass. I'm going to do a couple appetizers, and we take it from there. Whatever I have moved to do it, we'll get it from there.
Okay. It sounds great. Thank you so much.
Very much. Thank you very much for having me again.
Now it's time to eat. Chef, I am salivating with the aroma and the just look at everything here. Tell me, what do we have?
I mean, we have some good food here.
Good food, but let's start from this in here.
This is the grilled salmon, béarnaise sauce, Canadian potato, turned onion, and this as well.
Okay.
It's one of the best in the menu. Chilean sea bass with garlic spinach and garlic cream sauce and garlic corn.
Okay.
This is one of my signature mussels. That's we call it mole africana. Has lemongrass, coconut milk, a red curry, and some African spice, and we toss it in.
That is one of your signature dishes that I'm always getting. Okay, and right here.
This is the lamb chop. It's green with the Senegalese onion and with the red wine sauce.
And the beef steaks.
The still also is the ribeye steak, one of the top line of steaks, with and butter, béarnaise sauce, and French fries.
Ounces of just goodness, people. I wish you all could smell this because it smells so good. I know you can at least see it. Just lean in. And then signature dishes, which is the grilled salmon with the béarnaise sauce. I'm just gonna go right in. Give me a nice hearty piece. Perfection. You can taste the char. You can taste the béarnaise and the nice taste of butter. Here we have the lamb chops. I mean, I wish you could smell this because it looks so good. Look, I'm gonna do what you do when you get a good plate or something. You just pick it up. Take a hunk. Seasoned so well. The meat is tender, but the herbs are just, oh my gosh, they're all on the tip of my lip and my tongue. So good. Look, I got the fork, I got the knife, I can't wait. I'm cutting into this 16-ounce steak. 16 ounces of ribeye, along with the herb butter and the béarnaise sauce. To a nice little piece. Hold on. All right. It is so good. So tender. So well seasoned. This restaurant is more than just food. It's a celebration of culture, ambition, and the pursuit of the American dream. Let's stay connected. Visit our website, www.what'seatingharlem.com, and follow us on our social media pages on Instagram and Facebook at What's Eating Harlem.
Nothing to do as we forget about you. You just came out of the blue.
We're continuing our conversation with Ms. Lana Turner and Reverend Derek McQueen right here in St. James Presbyterian Church in Harlem on the corner of 141st Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. I encourage you to lean in because we're guaranteed to grow in knowledge. We're back, and I'm so happy that we are back. So I'm just going to talk to you to let you catch us all up on where we are and where we're heading.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is start out, and of course, Reverend McQueen is going to leap right in here in all these different places. But perhaps I'll start with just an overview of some of the things we talked about, or some of the people we talked about before. like many of our churches, nothing starts out in a way that you can imagine. First of all, the first Presbyterian Church organized for African Americans was in 1807 in Philadelphia. New York City does not get an African American Presbyterian church until 1822. And this is anticipating the abolition of slavery in New York State, which doesn't happen until 1827. So in 1822, the Presbyterian Church starts with Reverend Samuel Cornish. And it starts out as with several names, but it ends up with one that will run through a good period of its first half of its beginnings. So it starts out being called the first colored Presbyterian Church of New York City. And then there was also a reference to the church called the New Demeter. I don't know if you've ever seen the New Demeter Presbyterian Church, but it was also known primarily as the Shiloh Presbyterian Church. So this is one church. And initially the church was on Rose Street, down near the Brooklyn Bridge. In 1822, it would then move to Elm Street in 1824. And Elm Street is now, you don't know it as Elm, you'll know it as Lafayette Street. Okay.
I will say that the reason it was named the first colored Presbyterian Church is that name came from the presbytery.
Of course.
The white presbytery decided that we will incorporate this church, but we'll incorporate it as the first colored. And it was the community itself that changed its name.
Okay.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. Because it was also referred to as the African,
Right.
in discussion, the African church, to distinguish it from other Presbyterian churches. Okay. In 1902, there is a Reverend C. Leroy Butler. And, there are a couple of things. One, he's the first that I have come across from Lincoln University. Okay? So, because of the whole history of ministers coming out from that institution. But the other thing that occurs to me about him is that he is that transition between being in Midtown and coming uptown. And that is the church in 1903 is at 359 West 51st Street. But that is short-lived because, it's short-lived because of what's over there.
Over on 51st.
Yeah, or in that general area. There's the railroad that's...
They took the entire area.
They took the whole area for Penn Station. So the church can be the 51st Street. It's larger than you think. Okay. And so, underground. Right. Exactly, right. So the church was short-lived on 51st Street. And he is that transition for coming uptown. In 1903, the church meets at a place called, I don't even know that there's a name for it, but it is a Harlem Hall. So that's not a proper name, it's just a name. It's in a hall. And that hall is at 121 West 133rd Street.
That was quite a move.
Well, but think about 1902. What is going on with the community of African Americans? What? The leap has less to do with the leap. Think now we've got Philip Payton, who has come into the picture, and he has figured out ways of getting white owners to allow Black folks into buildings and houses. This was not a simple thing, by the way, but this is part of the Great Migration. Also, there's a lot of tension, there are fights, there's a lot of violence between the Irish and the Black communities. In other words, the context for a church leaving 51st Street or leaving Midtown, what you would think of as Midtown and West Side, has everything to do with this is where our people are going. The Great Migration has already begun. It will pick up a lot of steam after World War I, when the servicemen come home. But this has begun the trek, and people are starting to look uptown. This was a great foresight because while at the time St. James would come uptown, there are others who are looking to come uptown. We'll talk about them later. There are those who come later. They come in the 20s. After the community has, had a great number of people here. And remember, I always talked earlier, before the church segment, about 135th Street being the center of the Black community early on in our earliest days. We've had other talks on, this program, What's Eating Harlem, on the Harlem Renaissance. This is squarely in the middle. 1927 is squarely in the middle of the Harlem Renaissance.
And there's a reason why this church became available. This church was built by a congregation that named itself the St. Nicholas Presbyterian Church. They were a white congregation. They built this incredible edifice, and then they realized that the community was changing.
And they were coming.
And so they looked to sell. And they sold it to St. James in 1927, and they built another church at 155th Street, which is another huge edifice, and left there, consequently, as well, because of the same migration of people of color.
Right. And there were two Presbyterian congregations there. Didn't one merge with the other? When they left here.
So let's just give viewers context. Right across the street, present day, is what we have as the museum for Alexander Hamilton's house.
Yes.
What was that like at that time? The church was here 27. Alexander Hamilton was long gone from there. So as Black people began to migrate and occupy this community, what changes and things could we conceptualize seeing?
Well, in 1927, you're not going to see, at least here at 141st and St. Nicholas, a huge African-American community. There was definitely a line against, this was still a white neighborhood.
Okay.
There were Black enclaves of people who lived in places, let's say on Edgecombe Avenue. Alelia Walker, Madam C.J. Walker's daughter, lived on Edgecombe Avenue even though she had that house on 136th Street. I think she was either number 80 or 90, I forget which building it is right now. But that's where she lived.
Right.
There were other people who also lived in the neighborhood, but there were only few here and there. So largely, and if you're talking about going up the hill on Convent Avenue, well, that was definitely not a community of African American people. That was definitely a white community.
But the few were enough to say, oh, it's time to go.
Well, it wasn't so much the few, it was what was happening in Central Harlem, where every day hundreds of people are still getting off the train. They're still getting off of the bus. They're still escaping Jim Crow. They're still escaping horrific conditions in the South and the Caribbean, and a few from Africa. So every day, there are more and more and more. The streets are teeming with people. It's hard to, you see a lot of people out on the street. You can't imagine teeming people where you're coming and you're in apartments, you think you're escaping racism from lynching and, being called names, and you get to the north and you think that this is a salvation, and it is not. It is not. It is a cold water flat. What does that mean? Heat, hot water, does that work? are the toilets being flushed? Does electricity come on? There are many people in one little room, a whole family in a room, and you have roomers to try to pay the rent. People are renting beds at night. They rent beds so that if you worked in the morning and you came home at night, then the person who worked at night, there are people rented beds.
Wow.
So there are too many things that we don't think about in terms of context. So this is an oasis. In 1927, St. James Presbyterian Church, as an African American community, this is almost an oasis.
That's all we have for now. Tune in next week. See you uptown.
This program was made possible by the Harlem Community Development Corporation and by the West Harlem Development Corporation. Solutions through collaboration. Also by the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah. You must be blinded by the lights. We came to shine here. Watch it look daytime in the night. We bring the vibes here. We full of life, you keep the change, keep the change.